I'm going to explain to you how to properly expand or execute to get through the clicker with a recurve bow. If you're new here, my name is Jay Kaminsky. I'm a two-time Olympic silver medalist in the sport of archery. I trained under Coach Lee full-time for over 12 years and really fully, truly understand his method inside and out, not just from a coaching standpoint, but from an actual archer standpoint. You're watching the Jay Kaminsky YouTube channel. Before I get any further, I do want to thank my Patreon supporters who support this channel and support everything I do within the sport of archery still. Thanks to them, I am able to continue moving forward and give everybody else this information for free. They do get a few perks out there as well for being a Patreon supporter. They get this video earlier than the public does. Also, they get some inside information, some behind the scenes type things. And I do offer a coaching service as well where they can send me a video for me to review, whether it be on their form or maybe tuning issues or helping them with a training plan. And they get a video response and I explain to them what I would change, what I'd work on, and things to focus on to make them a better archer. So thanks again to them. I really appreciate their support, and I thank everybody else as well out there. If you're not able to do the Patreon way, there are other ways to support this channel. Liking and sharing this video, spreading the word that I am out there, encouraging your friends to watch these videos, things like that really do help and ultimately allow me to keep doing this for the foreseeable future. If you're interested in becoming a Patreon member, I'll put a link in the description below, as well as I'm going to put a card at the top here to my website where I have my Patreon info, some apparel available, books available, and seminar info as well if there's any seminars coming up in the near future in your area. So the most important part within Coach Lee's method is tension and direction, or one of the most important parts. And it's why I covered it very early on in this tuning series. Again, there's a link in the description of the tuning series below. So tension and direction. I've said many times throughout this whole series that you need to maintain or continue the same movement because you will lose your momentum if you don't do so. So the whole idea is to pull the bow back, to anchor, transfer, and ultimately expand the same way. So don't change directions, don't change the main movements. So meaning don't pull the bow back linearly to then have to transfer angularly, or don't pull back linearly to try to expand angularly. It just doesn't work. We pull back angularly, and then we transfer angularly, and then we expand angularly as well. So there's many different ways to think about expansion. I'm not going to cover all of the things within expansion. That will be in another video, but I will teach you the main important principles of expansion. So within expansion, there is release and follow through. Those are the things that I am not going to cover today, but what I'm going to cover is the important principle of how you will expand. I said release and follow through are within expansion, so that means expansion extends after you let go of the string. It extends all the way until you finish follow through. So it's extremely important to not change your mindset. I said during the transfer step, now is the time to clear your mind, to start aiming, and then to get ready to start executing. So this is the execution phase that I talked about. During expansion, the actual physical movement that you're doing is basically the same exact movement that you did to transfer. So land 2 moves parallel to the shooting line, so directly behind you. As I'm expanding, I'm just taking my land 2 and I'm pushing it parallel to the shooting line. And when I do that, you'll see that my elbow and my upper arm and everything hinges around and behind me. If I'm moving my land 2 parallel to the shooting line, you see me move around. Again, I've really focused on talking about movements versus muscles. I'm not telling you what muscles to activate. I'm not even telling you where you should be feeling tension, because that can get confused with muscles. And I've already covered how focusing on muscles can really affect your shot cycle and essentially prevent you from expanding. Many people cannot get through the clicker because they have focused on muscles. And like I've said, I've talked about the whole moving your arm thing. You can just move your hand up to your face by thinking about moving your hand, but as soon as you think about use your bicep, yeah, you can still do it, but if I say use my bicep, I can use my bicep more if I'm flexing the opposing muscle, the tricep, at the same time, so I'm not even moving my hand. That's the same thing that happens when people are trying to expand when they've focused on a muscle. If you focus on the movement, you will use the correct muscles and you'll be able to get through the clicker. So again, land 2, parallel to the shooting line behind you. You can also feel as if you are hinging this portion. So you can think about your scapula and your upper arm being one piece and feeling it hinge and pivot around this spot as well. So you can feel like this moves in, but the land 2 is still moving parallel to the shooting line. So you can think about it in 2 different ways. You can feel it in different ways. It really comes down to each individual preference. I kind of like that hinge and that pivot because everything feels a bit more compact and ultimately it feels a bit more efficient, a bit more powerful, whereas the land 2 just moving parallel to the shooting line isn't within your system. It feels like it's independent of your system, so it feels like you're shifting and changing too much. This isn't within Coach Lee's book, the Total Archery Inside the Archer, which is definitely something that I recommend to check if you haven't yet. It's right here. It's written by Coach Lee and Tyler Benner. Tyler Benner was one of my teammates out at the Olympic Training Center, and it has all of the details of every step that I've covered already. Plus probably has a bit more information as well, but I'm really making sure I hit the highlights for you. If you're interested in that book, I'll put a link in the description below as well for you to check out. Like I said, the moving the land 2 is textbook, but that hinge and that pivoting, you feel like internally you're not moving as much, meaning I'm not shifting where my body is in space. I'm just manipulating the structure of my body to set the clicker off. That's not in the book, like I said. It's kind of outside of what most coaches would say, but that's what I felt internally. At the same time, we are expanding back here. We're going to feel our anchor pressure increase in this direction. I've already covered that in the anchor portion as well. And so as I'm hinging and moving around here, this hand is going to continue to add pressure into my face. I have said a few times that you don't want to lose all of your tension in your bicep. And the reason for that is just stability, especially shaking. So in the beginning of when I was shooting this system, I shook a whole lot more than I shook towards the end of my career because I was trying to lose as much of my arm tension as possible because Coach Lee's method was no arm tension, more back tension. So I tried to relax my bicep as much as possible. So I didn't have very much pressure coming into my neck, right? And so if I didn't and my bicep was relaxed, I could shake I could shake and move. But as soon as I added tension into my bicep and kept pulling into my face as well as hinging around and making sure I was using my back, sorry, I'm cramping, I would shake, but the whole system, because it was so tight, you couldn't see a whole lot of movement, and I didn't see a whole lot of movement either, and my impacts downrange were much more consistent as well. So your anchor is going to increase. You're going to feel a little bit of bicep tension, which is okay. But remember, everything that I've said from before this point as well, equal sides. Both sides have to be balanced. So I'm adding pressure around this way. I have to add pressure this way. So as I'm pulling and hinging around and behind, I have to push forward at the same time, equally. In the beginning, you're going to focus a whole lot more on this back half because chances are it's your dominant hand and you're going to have a lot more issues with this back side and you have to learn how to control it. But once you've done it a million times and have ingrained it into your subconscious, you really have to make sure you're balancing the left side out with the right side. Whatever you're exerting here, you have to exert here. If you don't, you will see variances in your release and you will see variance in your follow through. So those are very, very important critical points of the shot. So if you're going to change those things, you're absolutely going to change your impact on the target. Physically, you have to hinge around and behind you. You have to increase the tension against your neck, and you have to balance both sides at the same time. So those are roughly the physical movements within the execution phase. But mentally, it's important to remember that execution, the expansion of when you're trying to set the clicker off, does not end when release happens. I said expansion. Within expansion is release and follow through. So mentally, however you're expanding, you should not change how you're expanding when the clicker clicks, when you let go of the string, when some arbitrary thing happens. It has to end when you finish the shot. And many people don't know when their shot finishes. Your shot finishes when you finish moving, okay? It's not when the clicker clicks. It's not when you let go. Again, I'm going to talk about release and follow through in a later video. They'll be coming up shortly, so please be patient. I'm working on them. I'm just trying to linearly go through the shot cycle so you can piece it all together at the end. So when I'm expanding, what am I thinking about? What I'm thinking about while I'm expanding is my finish position. So where I want to feel the end. Not necessarily what I feel in my back, not necessarily how I'm moving, what I'm looking at, etc. I'm thinking about my finish position. So when I'm expanding and getting through the clicker, this is what I'm thinking about right here. I'm thinking about overall how I feel. I'm thinking about how my legs feel, how my hips feel, how my core feels, how my back feels on this side, how my arm feels on this side. I'm thinking about a holistic approach to my expansion, all right? So when I'm executing, I'm thinking about this right here. And actually I'm thinking about, but feeling it. I'm feeling what it is. And this is something I will expand on. Many people can say finish in their head, say the word finish, or say the word follow through or whatever. For me, I'm not a word person, I'm a feeling person. So I go by the feel of the shot when the shot breaks and I can't follow through anymore. That's what I want to think about. Because if I'm trying to actively go towards that, then chances are I'm going to hit closer to that exact spot as the day goes on. Otherwise, if I'm thinking about just when the clicker clicks or just when I let go, then if I change that window, then this change, the finish position will be drastically different because of, margin for error. So if I'm focused on here and I miss this by just a little bit, nothing in between here and there changes, or at least very, very little changes in between those 2 points. So expansion is really, really important to control how you're expanding, the direction that you're moving, the tension that you're building, and making sure everything is equal both sides. Plus, you have to control your mind as well. Because transfer allowed us to calm down and relax a whole bunch, then we're allowed to switch to expansion. And when we do that, we've already started aiming by then, and then all we're trying to do is to finish the shot. We're not trying to just set the clicker off. Thanks for watching. Be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell to be notified every time a new video is uploaded. Be sure to head to jkaminsky.com for the books and apparel that I have available. And thank you again for tuning in, and I appreciate it. Take care.